Hey, y'all. I invite you to close your eyes and take a breath. And as you come back into this room, I invite you to bring your people with you. I'm coming to you today as the daughter of Kim, Helen, Sally, Sylvia, and Liz, and as the mother of Sylvia June. My story of home and my path to this work is the legacy of 7 generations of women who set the spell to bind me to place. It was Mama teaching me to know the trees, Granny stringing beans on the porch, Mama instructing me to find peace in walking the creek. It was them and the stories from generations of traditions, values, and connection made by walking the land over. You see, women bear memory. From your grandmother's cells, your mother was born with the cell that made you. Women are literally walking around with a physical memory of their ancestors. This memory embodies our connection to land, and that embodied history is the taproot that binds us to place. Rural women are the stewards of this connection, and the work that grows from this root is rural America's most powerful advantage. The work that I want to share with you has grown from weaving these embodied memories together. I was invited here to share insights about my experience over the past year as a new mother who is trying to build a diverse, multi-sector national movement. Now, if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have told you that rural generation felt powerfully reflective of a woman growing into leadership. The work felt synergistic. We met with 30 people every 2 weeks for 18 months because we knew that if people were welcomed into extraordinary places to hear from folks who were different from them, that they would be changed. We traveled 300 miles across Mississippi to bear witness to both the abundance of rural culture and the consequences of decades of disinvestment, because we know that our broken systems are the product of a chronic lack of support, not a shortage of visionary people. The result was 250 people from 44 states weaving a more complete story of rural America and Indian country. Gathered in the side yards of the civil rights movement, we were reminded of the potential for relationships to heal communities and challenged to redefine equity to include a responsibility to rural people. I'm proud that we made the summit to be radically inclusive and rural in its bones. But when it was all over, I couldn't feel the warmth of connection. I left the summit feeling exhaustion, defeat, and failure. For all of its connective practice, the summit was largely managed by a single person as just part of their responsibility. And that person was me, 5 months postpartum, with an unfamiliar body and an unrecognizable lack of confidence, a baby at the breast, without staff or continued funding. So while there were so many beautiful, important moments at the summit, when people from different worlds recognized their linked experience, and so many people, especially many of you, who stepped up to make it work, still, I became so stressed and defeated after that gathering that my breast milk dried up for days. So here I was, organizing towards the sustainability in the work while threatening my ability to feed my daughter. I'm learning that the body will demonstrate what the spirit may not want to concede. That when the conditions for making the work risk our ability to nourish the next generation, that we are not making progress. We are carrying our communities with history in the belly and the future at the breast, and we are starving while we pass out loaves. Now, as I tell you this, I confess that I am terrified to say it out loud. But we are called to be vulnerable with one another because vulnerability is the currency of connection, and connection is a healing act. So even though we were raised on resilience, and it feels like betraying our hardiness to admit it, we have to stop saying that we are making it just fine. So often the work made by women, made in the South, made outside of institutions, is praised and referenced and lifted, but very rarely is it funded. This systemic lack of investment necessarily means that the women nurturing our community's future do so without health insurance or the option to build wealth or the dignity of a staff to share the weight of the work together. Now, I understand that this work takes time. Relationships are built one by one at the speed of trust. And yet, it is beginning to feel like we can align institutions and governments and communities and still not earn the support of a national philanthropy that invests only 2% of arts funding in rural America. Ladies, we are not lacking the skills to start our fires, but we are lacking the fuel to tend them. That consistent choice to look away makes us choose between the well-being of our family and the well-being of our community. Our choice has always been each other, but here in the wealthiest nation on earth, our connection should entice support, not excuse the insufficiencies of a broken culture of philanthropy. And so I am trying to envision the conditions for nourishment. As I've grown from my experiences after the summit, I have started to look for a way back to all of you. And so I recall what I learned from childbirth, that you can't run from pain, that you have to learn to work with it, and that the pain is sharpest just before emergence. That just like the snake, the moon, and the tulip, all of us have to labor to become. I'm reminded that the work is older than us, and that the fruits of our labor are a return, not an arrival. That all things emerge, grow, rest, and repeat. That it's ancestral progress, working from our grandmother's advancements, so we must labor to become over and over again. And here we are. Each of you are here sharing the story of a place, a strategy, and a group of people working to make your community flourish. Despite our differences, our struggles, and even our imperfections, when we come together to listen to one another's stories, we find the value of our own communities and our own value reflected back at us. Our strength will come from our connection, because it demonstrates that a better world is still possible. In this way, connection is both the starting point and the destination, the root and the flower. Wholeness requires the recognition of someone else's struggle as your own. When I link my prosperity to yours, we become whole, and remember that the strategy of division is predicated on the lie of superiority. That for me to live well, you have to live poorly. When the truth is that my survival is connected to yours. That the only path forward is the one we walk together. So let's support each other like our future depends on it, because it does.